It's a provocative question. Could Greece invade Turkey? On the surface, geography and history make the idea dramatic. Two neighbors, centuries of rivalry, islands separated by breath-shortening sea lanes. But geopolitics is not a movie. War between modern states is messy, expensive, and shaped more by politics, alliances, and economics than by pride or battlefield bravado. This script walks through the strategic reality: military balance, political constraints, logistics and geography, international responses, possible scenarios, and the likely outcomes. The conclusion is stark. An invasion of Turkey by Greece is not just improbable, it would be catastrophic and strategically self-defeating. Here's why. Political impossibility, NATO, diplomacy, and legitimacy. The single largest barrier to any Greek military move against Turkey is political. Both are NATO members. NATO's founding principle is collective defense, but it also embeds mechanisms for consultation and conflict prevention among members. An open Greek attack on Turkey would not be an internal dispute to be shelved quietly. It would immediately fracture alliance cohesion, force emergency consultations, and risk cascading interventions by external powers. International law and legitimacy matter. An unprovoked invasion would be a clear violation of the UN Charter and would likely trigger immediate diplomatic isolation of Greece, emergency sessions at the UN Security Council, and rapid measures by allies to de-escalate. The political cost, economic sanctions, loss of international support, possible suspension from NATO forums, and domestic turmoil, would dwarf any hypothetical short-term territorial gain. Even the most hawkish voices understand that modern great power politics is about coalitions, not solo conquests. For Greece to attempt a major aggression would require either a collapse of international restraints or a level of external backing that does not exist in the current strategic map. Military balance, capability, scales, and risks. Militarily, Turkey is the larger and more powerful state. It fields more combat aircraft, more armored formations, a larger navy, and a bigger standing army. Turkey's defense industry has expanded substantially, and its force posture is designed for regional power projection as well as national defense. Greece has modernized significantly in recent years and can claim pockets of qualitative edge: new fighters, upgraded air defenses, and improved navy assets. But modernization does not instantly erase differences in scale. Military power is not just platforms. It is sustainment, reserves, logistics networks, munition stockpiles, training tempo, and depth of mobilization. Turkey's larger population and defense budget translate into an ability to mobilize greater manpower and maintain operations over longer periods. An invasion is not a single battle. It implies seizing and holding territory, providing supply lines, and neutralizing an opponent's ability to counterattack. That requires numerical depth. Multiple divisions, logistics convoys, air superiority, and secure maritime lines, all areas where Greece would be severely challenged against a determined Turkish response. It's also essential to note the nuclear and strategic context. Turkey is a nuclear alliance member under NATO's extended deterrence umbrella. While it does not possess independent nuclear weapons, the strategic stakes of large-scale conventional conflict between NATO members would push the alliance into complex crisis management, raising risks of escalation beyond the conventional. Geography and logistics, the hard, often forgotten factor. Geography is not neutral. The Aegean archipelago, the Dardanelles, the Bosporus, these are not just picturesque features, they are strategic obstacles. The islands that punctuate the Aegean are many and dispersed. Defending or occupying them is labor-intensive. Amphibious operations are among the hardest in warfare. They require specialized ships, secure beaches, overwhelming fire superiority, and airtight logistics. Large navies and air forces matter here, and Turkey's coastline, bases, and sea control give it advantages for defense and counter-operations. Moreover, warfare across the Aegean would require sustained supply through narrow sea lanes vulnerable to interdiction, mines, and air attack. Greece's ability to keep forward forces supplied would be strained quickly in a high-intensity conflict. Turkey's interior lines, larger rail and road networks, and more numerous military bases would allow faster reinforcement and counter-mobilization. Weather and terrain favor the defender. Mountains, narrow passes, and coastal bottlenecks make rapid, decisive advances difficult. Occupation aims, holding cities or islands, require garrison forces that are vulnerable to isolation. An invading force can take ground, but holding and governing it in the face of resistance and international condemnation is an entirely different burden. Economic and societal costs. Wars between neighboring states create deep economic shockwaves. Both economies would suffer from disruption to trade, tourism, energy flows, and investor confidence. Greece's economy, while resilient in many ways, would face amplified shocks. Defense spending surges, sanctions risk, loss of tourism revenues, and capital flight. Social cohesion would fray under mobilization pressures and casualty returns. Beyond economics, demographic realities matter. Turkey's larger population provides a deeper reservoir for reserves and replacements. Greece's smaller population limits sustained manpower surges without long-term societal strain. Even short conflicts can leave generations of political trauma and long-term economic stagnation. Leaders who might contemplate military action must weigh these costs heavily, and publics, especially in democracies, rarely support long wars of attrition without clear, legitimate causes and robust exit strategies. International response. No island in the global storm. No modern war is local. An assault on Turkey would trigger immediate global responses. Emergency UN sessions, European Union sanctions or mediation, NATO crisis management, and the potential for external powers to step in for de-escalation. The United States, while having its own strategic stakes and complex ties to both Greece and Turkey, would almost certainly mobilize diplomatic pressure to stop hostilities. Other regional powers, Russia, Israel, Arab states, would react based on their interests, potentially complicating the situation. Sanctions, arms embargoes, financial isolation, and trade barriers would hit hard. Even if a narrow military success were possible initially, sustaining gains under international pressure would be near impossible. History shows that international isolation can starve a war effort faster than bullets. Alternatives to invasion: political, economic, and hybrid options. If we strip away the sensationalism, states pursue their interests through means other than outright invasion. Diplomacy, economic pressure, information campaigns, cyber operations, proxy warfare, and legal challenges. Greece and Turkey have a long history of bilateral negotiations, EU channels, and NATO mechanisms to resolve disputes. International courts, maritime arbitration, and bilateral talks have roles to play, sometimes messy, sometimes slow, but far less destructive than combat. Hybrid tools, cyber operations, targeted economic measures, and influence operations allow states to pursue objectives without the ruinous costs of full-scale war. For a democratic, economically integrated country, these tools often present more effective and lower-risk choices. Scenarios: what might happen if an attack occurred? Any hypothetical scenarios should be treated as thought experiments, not prescriptions. At a high level, limited skirmish escalation. Isolated clashes over islands or airspace could spike into cycles of retaliation. These are dangerous but containable if both sides back away and international mediators step in. Short, coercive strike. Aim to seize a tiny objective for leverage. This risks rapid escalation. It might produce temporary military gains but would almost certainly trigger international intervention and domestic blowback. Full-scale invasion requires mobilization beyond current peacetime postures and would likely provoke a massive Turkish response and swift international diplomatic and economic pressure on Greece. Across all scenarios, the chance of uncontrollable escalation is high. Crises have a way of spinning beyond planners' intentions, especially when nationalism and domestic politics turn up the heat. Pragmatic conclusions: why invasion is not a real option. Summarizing the strands above leads to clear reasons why Greece invading Turkey is not a realistic policy option. Alliance and legal restraints make such aggression politically suicidal. NATO membership and international norms bind both capitals. Military asymmetry in scale and sustainment favors Turkey. Qualitative upgrades by Greece narrow gaps but do not eliminate the fundamental difference in depth. Logistical and geographic realities make offensive operations across the Aegean extraordinarily costly and fragile. Economic and domestic risks are prohibitive for prolonged conflict. Global reaction and isolation would rapidly undermine any initial military gains. The prudent path for states with overlapping claims is negotiation, confidence building, and international arbitration, not invasion. History is littered with cases where bold military gambits achieved fleeting gains and permanent catastrophe. The moral and human cost. Beyond strategy and geopolitics lies the human dimension. Any war would produce civilian casualties, refugees, and long-term trauma. Islands with tight communities would bear disproportionate burdens. Families and economies would be shattered. Leaders who choose war risk legacy as much as territory. Power is more than weapons. Military power is a function of politics, economics, law, logistics, and public will. Questions about invasions are not solely about who has more tanks or planes. They are about whether a nation can sustain a campaign politically, economically, and morally in the face of global scrutiny. In that broader calculus, Greece invading Turkey is not a feasible strategic option. It is a gamble with ruinous odds. The lesson for policymakers and publics alike is clear. Preserving peace demands investment, military where necessary, but equally in diplomacy, alliances, crisis management, and conflict prevention. In the complex chessboard of the Eastern Mediterranean, restraint and wise statecraft are the true measures of strength.